I couldn't figure out how to start this video, so I'm just gonna start. Have you ever looked at something and got a headache? I mean, like your ex. You look at him and all of a sudden you get a migraine. Oh my word, what they did to you and you just can't take it anymore, so you get a migraine. There are other things, like some people get a migraine going to the post office, waiting in line, waiting for the cashier at favorite Walmart. There are other things like that that give people headaches. I get headaches. I get migraines. My migraines come from math. Now, that may seem odd to most of you, because you don't get a headache when you see 2 times 500 equals 1,000, I believe. But I get a headache, and here's why. Because math is not logical, at least how I was taught. I was taught that 1 times 0 equals 0. That's illogical. Put a pen or anything close by on your desk and look at it. Now you have one thing there, and you multiply that times 0, you still have that 1. Illogical, because they teach you that it's 0. Regardless of the 1, I had one teacher tell me that you had to subtract the 1. Illogical, there's no subtraction in a multiplication program. So, I had a hard time with math, and I still do. Most of you will think that's funny, and some of you will understand, and either way, it's all right. I didn't go to school like most of you did, and I was taught from a young age to be logical, a Mr. Spock, so to speak. And I really was logical. I mean, you know, if you told me something like a lot of kids were told, when you were born, we found you under a rock, or in a cabbage patch, or a stork brought you. I was logical even back then. That didn't make sense. And one kid told me that he came from his mother's tummy. And I thought to myself, okay, this is a poop kid. But the point is that things have to be logical to me, and they always have had to be logical. So 1 times 0 equals 0 was never logical. In 27 years, not one teacher could tell me why 1 times 0 equals 0. Now, you think that's bad. 200 times 0 would still equal 0. Illogical, because you still have the 200 regardless. Somebody came to me, a friend as a matter of fact, much older. I mean, he's much older. He's not a math major. He's not what anybody would consider brilliant, but he is a good guy. And we were talking about it one day, and he stopped talking to me, and he thought for a little while, and he says, Remy, I think I got the answer for you. Yeah, right. Now, honestly, I went to school a total of like 5 years out of my life, and usually it was in 6 weeks to 8 week stints, because my parents traveled and they'd throw me in school when they could, but most of the time they couldn't because they were too busy. My dad was a sales trainer for a hotel chain, so I didn't get to stay in one place long. I didn't make very many friends because of it. We didn't make friends, and then 6 weeks later you're gone, and I never see you again. So I had to deal with this all my life. Now I could tell time, and I could count change out, and I could tell time long before most kids could. Some still can't tell time. But he said he had the answer, and I said, yeah, well, my best friend, Stephen, his name is Stephen Richie, by the way. He is an author, and to me, he is a brilliant man. But I'm 27, and he's almost 3 times my age. I said almost. He's not 3 times my age, just almost 3 times my age. Sorry, Stephen, I'm not going to give your age out, nor did I put a picture up of you because I didn't want everybody sending you all this great email. He said to me, I think the problem is the whole conception of math was left out of what you were being taught. Yeah, okay. Excuse me, 1 plus 1 equals 2. Okay, I'll give you that. 1 plus 1 equals 2. 1 plus 2 equals 3. Great, okay, but what's that got to do with 1 times 0 equals 0? Then we're going to end up in a different galaxy than Andromeda. Yeah, and we would, too. That's why I feel sorry for Mr. Spock, because he was using that during the Star Trek series when Spock was on. He was saying, oh, it's only logical. I would think, that's not logic at all. That's stupidity. Because 1 times 0 does not equal 0. And Steve says, I'll repeat it. Steve says it's the misconception of what they taught. Okay, what am I misconstruing that they didn't teach? And he said, well, when you look at a math problem, 1 times 0 is supposed to be cumulative. There is no accumulation with the problem 1 times 0. So therefore, with no accumulation, it equals 0. And he said, you're right, 1 times 0 would still equal 1 because you still have 1 left. But you're looking at the math problem wrong, because multiplication is an accumulation of numbers. It made sense. It was logical. It's still 1 times 0 and you still got 1 left. But because it's an accumulation program, then it would equal 0. After 27 years, I finally understood the missing concept behind multiplication. So I went to Amazon. I thought, with this new knowledge, I might be able to learn math. Looked up math books, and I looked up a 3rd grade math book because that would have multiplication in it, right? And I looked through a few pages of the math book, and I said, no, this will never work because I have no idea what these symbols are. Look at the symbols I'm drawing up here. I mean, those were in the 3rd grade math book. So I went down to a 2nd grade math book. Oh my goodness, they still had all these nasty things. I said, nope, that'll never work because I got to have somebody explain this stuff to me. Now, my best friend is a physics teacher, and he is great at math and excelled at it and became a teacher in less than 5 years. Well, about 5 years. And as soon as he got out of school, hired him to teach physics. In the U.S., that's a middle school and high school that he started teaching, 11 to 16-year-olds. And I'm like, Paul, we're not even 26 yet, and you're teaching? And he said, yes. And I'm like, you're teaching 16-year-olds? They're going to think you're a student. And a lot of people did think he was a student because he wasn't old enough to be a teacher, right? Anyway, he never, ever was able to explain 1 times 0 equals 0. However, Stephen Richie did. So to me, Stephen, regardless of anything else, is a hero. And he's brilliant too. Thank you for listening. I hope you can find out the answers to your problems. Try not to use math.